Christians sin? Yes, we do. So it didn't bother them. He didn't care that much what the law says. But when his eyes were opened to his sin, and it slew me. Well, what he's talking about here, it's not that God deceived him at all. That's not what he's saying. God didn't give the law for it to be a weight around our neck. The law was not meant to be a cause of pain. It was a revelation of God's character. Man said, God, but we're sinful, and so that we see this high bar of God's standards, and then we fall so painfully short of those standards. That's what Paul was saying here in verse number 11. Sin taken occasion by this commandment deceived me. It deceived him because in the flesh he thought he could keep God's law. He thought he could do all the things and be righteous in himself through the law. But as he tried, he realized that the harder he tried and the more he learned about God, the further from God's standard he actually was. And then you finally say, well, I got the lying thing done, and it says, don't commit adultery. Well, that's fine. I'm a one-man woman. And it says, it even means what you think, how you think. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment is holy, just and good. There's nothing wrong with God's law. God's law is perfect. It's not sinful. And the fact is, the standard is high, but we can't meet it. That's what Paul was saying. But that doesn't mean that the standard, but because we are sinful and we see God's standard, it reveals our level of sin and depravity. And because of that is what slew us. That's what Paul's talking about there. Verses 14 through 18. Fasting, they went out, they got drunk and overate, which to me kind of defeats the entire purpose of fasting, but that's not the point. So that was the carnival. It was the time of the flesh. And what Paul was saying is that the law is spiritual and sealed against the day of redemption. My soul wants to do what's right. My soul wants to please God, but it's dragging around this body that doesn't necessarily want to please God. It wants food, it wants sleep, it wants comfort, it wants people to say how great I am, all those things. And so what Paul read my Bible, but my body wants to go to sleep. And so I give in to my body and not read the Bible. My soul wants to pray. My body says my knees hurt, my back hurts, and I don't sit on the cross, and yet and we as Christians should not yield ourselves as instruments in unrighteousness. We should live a holy life. In unrighteousness, we should live a holy life. And then he starts talking about how the law could not say. Wear pants back in. Wear pants back in. He's not talking about gross sin. He's not talking about gross sin. He wasn't having an affair in every church that he went and started. He's not cheating people. He's not taking their money. He's not. The heart wants what it wants, so just do whatever. The heart is deceitfully wicked above all things. You should not trust your heart. Paul was saying that there is, in his flesh, there's no good thing. Now that doesn't mean, and it's getting in the way of him serving God, and he gives into the fleshly nature. He says, I've not seen anything redeeming about this old flesh that I'm carrying around. And there's some good parts to it, but you just understand, all of it is dragging me away from serving God the way that I want to. The very fact that we are bothered by our sin is evidence of the change has been made. My flesh, if I follow my flesh, it's just going to drag me away. But that is an evidence of the Holy Spirit being inside of you. It's not the person, it's the sin. That's why it says, it's no longer me that does it, but the sin that dwelleth within me. You see, when you are saved, God takes out that old stony heart of who you used to be. And he throws that away, and he puts in a heart of flesh inside of you. You are sealed by the Holy Spirit until the day of redemption. The internal part of you has been made righteous according to God and is not subject to sin. However, that fleshly heart is in this old body, and it's being drugged down. I'm not ready for Sunday morning service. You get what I'm saying? I can't listen to the flesh.